Hi, welcome back to another episode of SEO On-Air. I'm your host, Aaron, and today we have Andreea Borcea, founder and fractional CMO of Dia Creative. We talk about the challenges she faced in her early days, the pros and cons of being a fractional CMO, and how AI has been ramping up since last year. I hope you enjoyed this episode.
So when you kind of had your starting maybe 20 odd years ago, did you always feel like at some point you would need to start your own agency? Or did you think that or like along the lines, you kind of thought this would be a good idea to do?
I didn't actually originally think I'd start my own agency. I I went to college for marketing and economics, and then I made a quick pivot into TV because it's something I always wanted to do, but I just wasn't really sure if that was there was something viable there. And I worked in TV for a while, and that actually ends up being mostly a freelance life, even if you're working for a major studio like A&E or Martha Stewart or WWE. You're still a freelancer, you're still independent. So I kind of really got used to that freelance life. And then I moved into internet marketing. Digital marketing was just becoming a thing right there. And that then became like, well, I know marketing and I know how to tell a story from TV. And then I kind of became my own little independent freelancer there. And then I pivoted over to working full time at a couple places. And now here I am with the agency.
And do you ever feel like, you know what, I could probably go back to the TV life and start all over there? Or do you think this is your calling now?
I I would love to work in TV. I think it's a great industry, and I think it's a lot of fun. I do think it's about to or has just gotten very challenging with the AI revolution. So I kind of want to
Yeah.
see where the dust settles a bit, but um, I do love working with my clients, and I love that we, as an agency, you can actually pick and choose who you work with. Sort of, you can at least fire the people you don't want to work with, client
Right.
wise. Um, but yeah, no, I think I would
Well,
explore that again.
right. I mean, I think when you get to that point, you have enough time to kind of explore side projects, and going back to TV might be a good option. But to take up your main project, the DI Creative, how exactly did that start off?
So Dia Creative is something. It's a name I've had for a while because I was also using it when I was freelancing back in the day. But it really came out of I was working for, like I said, I was working full time in a bunch of places. And then I found out that I really love helping smaller businesses, small and medium sized businesses with their marketing. But a lot of them couldn't afford to have a CMO or a senior marketing strategy, anything. They were all mostly hiring for mid level, but they were missing the strategy part. So about 7, 8 years ago, I pivoted out of working full time and I moved to a fractional CMO. And I did that for a while, about 3, 4 years. And then the challenge became with being a fractional CMO was that we'd come up with all this strategy and all these ideas about everything we should do. But because they were so small, they couldn't execute on it. So, like, it didn't matter that you had all these ideas. It didn't matter that you had done all this research and you had figured out exactly what was right for the
Right.
growing the business. They didn't have the bandwidth. So Dia Creative was born. So it started with had a couple of fractional CMO clients, and I said, okay, well, you can't get this done. Let me bring in people I know and trust on my team, and we'll get the tactical done. And then over the last 4 years plus, it's evolved into a tactical, strategic execution engine. We become an extension of their team. We get to be their marketing team, but we don't have to be there full time, so they can afford us, and we can also learn from different industries and play around. And that's kind of just how it naturally evolved. I don't think it was something that off the top of my head I was like, I'm going to start an agency. It just kind of became a necessity.
Right. There are some people who have that entrepreneurship spirit where I think from the start, even without the experience, the first thing they go is like, I want to have my own agency or my own company. And I think to others, it kind of is a natural progression of frustration and ambition that kind of gets to that point where you're like, you know what? I think it's time for me to start my own agency. And while I love to want to talk more about Dia Creative, what I do want to focus is the fractional CMO part. That's the kind of difference I was talking about earlier about how America does things and how India does it. We don't normally hear a lot of fractional CMOs. So could you tell me, one, how it is to be a fractional CMO? What are the pros and cons of being one?
So fractional everything, I feel like kind of was born about 7 to 10 years ago. And I think it comes from the fact that we have an aging population. So we have quite a few people. Baby boomers and Gen X are some of the largest generations. So they've got 20 plus 30, 40 years experience, and they're getting towards maybe the middle to end of their career. And they're finding that they can't necessarily make the biggest impact on just one business, or they're finding that, so from an fractional standpoint, I think this concept was born because a lot of these professionals were like, I want to make an impact. And most businesses can't afford me where I can make an impact. And the businesses that can afford me don't really need me, or those jobs are becoming less and less. There's less. I mean, how many major businesses are there? Companies, Fortune 500, that you only one senior marketing leader or finance or legal, and there's fractional CFOs, COOs, CSOs, everything. So from a fractional side, I think that's why you're seeing a lot of professionals lean into fractional. From a business side, I think the fractional is very attractive because they can get access to somebody that they could never get access to otherwise, that they could never afford. And it's freelance and consulting has more of this interaction. It's almost like a transactional approach to strategy. If you hire a consultant or a freelancer, they come in, they'll do what they need to do, and then they leave. And I say this even with the agency, is we have a fractional mindset, not a freelance mindset. And the biggest difference when you have a fractional mindset is you come in and you care. Like you are like emotionally invested in the business as if you're full time, but you only put in 10 hours a week, 5 hours a week, 5 hours a month on the lower end, but you're constantly like looking for opportunities. You're thinking about them all the time. And that I think is really attractive to a business because you get this high level support without having to pay a 6-figure salary. And it's more of that relationship rather than these like one-off tiny things.
Towards the fractional CMO side of things, if you are one, and let's say me, I have my own business, let's say, that I think you would be perfect to head and lead in one area. But my brother Luigi, even he has a business that's kind of similar to mine, and he also thinks that you would be a good fit for him. So when it comes to something like that, where there might be two different parties that need your services, but they might be, I don't want to say rivals or anything, but it could be conflicting. Do you make that choice to choose which one you can work for? Or is it something where they have to make a contract and let you know you can and can't work for these people?
That's a great question. Well, I mean, the US just outlawed non-competes. So there goes that. But I think for anything that's fractional or even freelance or consultant, I think it's really about the integrity of the fractional person, that unless you can find a distinct difference between the businesses, I probably wouldn't work for direct competitors. I would definitely, because I think you can only do so much. That being said, if there's a way that you can leverage each other, if there's a way to learn from each other, then I think there's some opportunities. I do know a lot of fractionals that will, especially ones with industry knowledge, they absolutely work for competitors, especially like in medical, finance, legal, where it's very narrow and you really have to know your stuff. But they also, every business needs something different, right? So your business might be struggling specifically with operational support, whereas Luigi's business is suffering with sales support. So having a fractional work with both businesses could still be okay, because on your side, they'll be focusing on processes and SOPs and hiring practices. And on Luigi's, they'll be focusing on sales outreach, copy, tactical execution of, bringing in inbound or outbound. So in that sense, I think it's just more assessing how they can help.
Right. So when it comes to you personally, though, as a fractional CMO, what would be your roles and responsibilities then?
So As a fractional CMO, I've run a couple of different things. Anything from sourcing partners and vendors and software marketing tech for my clients. I've run their team for them temporarily while they hire somebody in-house. I've built out all of the marketing reporting internally to really help them start on the right foot and know how to track their KPIs more effectively. I can't tell you how many businesses are just kind of running and they have no idea if they're actually making money or not until the end of the year. What else have I done?
Right.
I help with pitch decks when they're sourcing funding. And I help them actually go into pitches if necessary to represent the marketing side of the pitch deck. Same with board of advisors. And then just mapping out strategy. So like taking the time to look at their business and figuring out what channel is the best channel for them to focus on, what they can do within their budget, both time and money, and how they can make an impact for their business. Oh, actually, last thing I do is I help entrepreneurs map out their future. So a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with don't know what they know that they want to be doing something different in 5 years, but they don't know how to get from today to 5 years from now. So I help them figure out, okay, but what do you want your life to look like 5 years from now? How do we back that up so we know exactly what we need to do from a marketing perspective to get your business to the point where you can sell it or you can merge it or you can, whatever it is your goals are.
Right. I just wanted to kind of pick that last bit up. If I came to you saying that, hey, I need help to kind of map out the next 5 years, how would that conversation go? Like, what are some of the questions you would need to know from me to kind of help you?
Yep. The first question I always ask is, what does your life look like? What is the lifestyle you're looking for? Some people love working. They love being in their business. They could never see themselves not being in it, but they want it to maybe be a little bit easier so that they can take a vacation. I'm sure, as you know, as a business owner, especially as an entrepreneur, like business comes first with everything. Like, it's, you're working at your kid's birthday party, you're working on vacation, so maybe it's
pretty much nonstop.
Yeah, it is nonstop because it's your baby. It's like having a new kid. That's just the business. So really, what I try to focus on first question would be like, well, what do you want your life to look like? And then, what does that mean for the business? What does the business look like for you to have that lifestyle you're looking for 5 years from now? And a lot of times it's, I want someone to buy my business. So for example, a recent conversation I had with somebody is he wants someone to buy his business or half his business, but he still wants to be in it and running it because he loves it. He just doesn't want the financial stress of it. That's a very unique situation, right? So now I'm like, okay, well, let's source who would be your ideal buyer. Okay, now we have a 3-year courting plan. How do we get on their radar? How do we get them to like you? How do we get them to feel like, oh, this is such a good idea for me to buy half your business and keep you on, right? So it's like all the steps we do to really kind of position you in that perfect place for the lifestyle you're looking for.
What were some of the things that you wished you knew earlier on? And what were some of the mistakes that you kind of made?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. So one thing I've done so the agency technically has only been around for about 4.5 years. But I have managed to create a little network of other agencies that are also around our age. Some are like 2 years, some are 5 to 10 years. And you can see that almost everyone makes the same mistakes every time. And it's like you get to that 10-year mark and then you're in a really good place. That's when you have enough clientele. You've had enough that you get really good referral business. Like that's the sweet spot. But around year 1 or 2, and it's funny because I'm talking to a colleague of mine who has a sales direct cold outreach company, and he's going through this exact thing right now, is when you start the business, especially as a fractional CMO, I do a lot of the delivery. I'm keeping the quality. I'm making sure things happen. But at some point you need to scale. And that's the first pain point. That's the first friction point. That's when you unfortunately lose clients because you've hired people, but you don't have the training resources and SOPs in process. So you kind of trust them to run it, but it's not at your quality level that you sold them on. And so I'd say number one thing I wish I had known before starting is to put more focus and time into process and planning and defining before scaling, which I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs do, because I've seen lots of startups do this. They just kind of grow, and then all of a sudden they have to do a product recall because they shipped out 10,000 units instead of 1,000, and the 10,000 were all watered down, and so you got to start all over again. Same thing with service businesses like the agency, right?
You kind of mentioned that also, I think, earlier on, how a lot of entrepreneurs don't really know what is the next step after starting that business. And I think that would be the kind of like the most important steps, how to kind of scale your business to, manage the next few years and manage more clients. Has there been any differences in what you've been offering in terms of services?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started off with what we call our Flex plan, which is basically full service digital marketing. And we still offer that, especially for small businesses where they need an entire marketing team, because it's a solopreneur running the whole thing, or a team of 3 people. And that's just, it's never going to cut it enough. They're always going to need marketing support. So for them, we basically, what we call is our flex plan, because they can flex into anything. They get a monthly retainer, and out of all of our service offerings, email, social, SEO, ads, web design and dev, anything kind of in the marketing space, we even do conference design, they can kind of pick and choose each month and flex into it and stay within budget, which is very important when you're a small business. Like, I don't want to spend more than $6,000 a month. We will make sure you never spend more than $6,000 a month, and we will maximize what you can do with that revenue. As we've evolved, though, and we have started working with larger companies, kind of more of that mid-tier, we still work with the small businesses, but now moving into the middle tier, they don't really need that. They have a marketing team. Some of them have a marketing team of 10 to 15 people. But what they do need is very specific channel support. So in that sense, we've really evolved to try to narrow down to our top 3 channels, which would be email marketing, social media, and SEO.
Right. If you don't mind, I'd like to play a little bit of a hypothetical scenario with you, to just give an idea of how, let's say, DIA Creative. Also, sorry I keep saying DIA. When I was in school, we had another school called DIA, and it was always Dubai International Academy. So it was always in my head to see those 3 letters pronounced that way. But DIA Creative, if I can work out this hypothetical with you, it would give an idea of how DIA Creative kind of does the process. So I already spoke about my brother Luigi. We kind of came together and banded to make this beauty brand, Mario and Luigi Bling. But we have no idea what to do when it comes to SEO, social media, or even email marketing. So we're approaching DIA Creative, and we want to get an idea of what you can do for us. So could you play out what our first conversation might look like?
Yeah. It's funny because I think what a lot of agencies will instantly drop into is, okay, what's the channel and how do we make the most of the channel? But I actually have a philosophy across every single client we sign. We actually start with a brand deep dive. So our very first meeting is a brand exercise.
Right.
I found the biggest loss of marketing dollars is when you're not talking to the right customer. And that happens all the time. The CEO has a passion to talk to a certain demographic, but that's not the demographic using your product or your service. So, stop talking to that demographic. This is the right one to be in, Yeah. So starting with that super deep brand deep dive, who are you talking to? What do you uniquely offer? What is the problem you solve? Where do they get their trusted information? And we have like a whole customer PDF that we kind of go through, a couple pages. After that, that's when I can kind of go in. So it's like, let's talk about a beauty brand. Email marketing is huge because in beauty in particular, ads are very expensive. It is a highly competitive space. Every celebrity during COVID started their own beauty brand. There's a new beauty brand, I think, every day in across the world. And there's so many mass manufacturers that you could start a beauty brand tomorrow, know nothing about beauty, just go to one of these mass manufacturers, say, hey, here's our logo, and they'll basically print it on a bottle of something that they sell across 1,500 other brands. And that's your beauty brand because it's really about marketing. So the reason I bring that back to these 3 organic channels, social, SEO, and email, is because that's how you make the most of your ad dollars. For every dollar you put in, you want to make sure that you get the most out of that customer. So focusing on that lifetime value. And email marketing is a great way to bring that customer back. Make sure that they keep buying, make sure that they're a loyal customer, that they feel part of your community. Social really helps in the sense that it establishes who you are as a brand. That's your brand trust and authority. So if I saw an ad, but I'm skeptical because, ads, and everyone knows what an ad is now, they're all like, it tingles your spidey sense that this is an ad. It's trying to sell me something, even if it's an influencer. I don't like it. But if you go to organic social and you check out their Instagram or their TikTok and you really feel connected to the brand there, that'll help next time you see an ad that you want to purchase because you've experienced them in some way. So I think that's where social is really important. And finally, SEO. Right. So SEO has been around forever. And SEO, I remember 20 years ago when I started, SEO was kind of one of the first digital marketing channels that everyone jumped on because the algorithm was really easy back then. You get backlinks, you would do your, you'd keyword rich the entire page. So it was unreadable, but the bots liked it in the search engines. That's exactly what it was like. Right. Now it's gotten a lot more sophisticated and the algorithms are getting trickier and trickier. But the sites that I worked on even 15 years ago are still around and doing well because of this core philosophy. So I've kind of developed out what I call intent-based SEO. And that is our unique way of doing SEO, which basically means going back to that customer, that target customer, that brand exercise, and saying, okay, what is that person actually searching for? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if I rank for 10,000 keywords if that traffic doesn't convert. And that's what I think a lot of people have been seeing with traditional SEO. It's great, I rank. Right. But my sales are the same.
Now what?
It doesn't exactly. So so instead we really focus on what is this person searching for? How do I specifically answer their need, solve their problem, make them feel comfortable? And you take a lot of that traditional SEO, but then we amplify it by focusing on this customer and then amplifying it across other channels like email and social media so that it can really kind of boost up the effort you're doing.
Right. And I think most people, and I'm pretty sure you would have heard this as well, SEO isn't a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yep.
So if I did come to you with this kind of help, how long would you estimate the at least potential time it would take to actually get SEO worked out properly from scratch?
Yeah. Well, with SEO, I feel like it's gotten a little bit faster recently in the last few months, especially if you're putting out really high quality content. You're targeting that customer and you're targeting terms that particular customer is looking for. Even if they're competitive, we found a couple ways of kind of inching our way forward with a lot of testing that we've done. We've gotten some brands to rank in as quick as 6 weeks for something that was a high converting keyword for them, which is pretty amazing. But I agree, usually it's 3 months before you actually start seeing something worthwhile. But the nice thing, as you know, with SEO is as long as you've done it right and the algorithms never end up slapping you down, it lasts forever. So it's worth it. It's totally worth it because, at the end of the day, you might not even need ads 10, 15 years from now if you've done it consistently, or 5 years from now.
In that way as well, can I continue with the hypothetical then? If, let's say, me and my brother Luigi, we've created this business, we've done some things right in terms of email marketing and SEO and social, but we came across this one thing called ChatGPT, and we both have no clue about what's going on in the world right now when it comes to AI. So we approach again the Fractional CMO. And we want to kind of have an idea of what we can use AI for in our company and what are the best benefits and cons.
Yeah, that's an inevitable question right now in the marketplace, isn't it? Is how is AI gonna?
I think that's also the reason why SEO has become a bit easier as well.
In some ways, although I would actually expand that question beyond just ChatGPT because AI is everywhere. in 3 months, I think there's something like 10 million apps that were created on AI, so it's the biggest
Yeah, I can
like
imagine.
explosion.
Everything's with the .io.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the biggest explosion since the internet was born is AI. And I do think there's a lot of ways that you can leverage it for your business. I speaking of SEO though, with Google's Google and Meta now with their AI enriched search generative results, that's a little trickier. I really want to see where that's going to play out, because I think it does suppress rankings a little bit, and that is what, as an
Right.
SEO implementer, that's exactly what you want. You want to rank, but actually now you want to get in that search generative results, which I think is going to be a little bit trickier because that's some pretty well-established brands from what I can tell. But going back to the
Right.
actual question of tools, I think ChatGPT, Google Gemini, those are really good brainstorming tools for marketing. I found that the best way to use those more so than writing copy is to just bat ideas back and forth and have something that you kind of throw some spaghetti at the wall. It comes back perfected a little bit more. You're like, that's not quite right. Let's try this. Let's try this. And let's try this. And then you can actually get some decent, real high value content. Unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people that just kind of try to use ChatGPT or Gemini to like write me an SEO enriched article on why my beauty brand is the best. And you can tell, like,
Right.
especially if they don't know how to massage it well, like it's repetitive. It's, my team's heard this 1,000 times. It's way too cheerleadery. It's all like, this is the best thing for your skincare
Right.
ever. And it's going to change your life. It's revolutionary and elusive. And it's got all these, and it's got emojis. If you ask it to write an Instagram thing, it's just all emojis. And you're just like, calm down. That's not how people
Yeah.
talk. You know?
We've had that issue multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not at the point where I'd say you can just ask it to do this and take the first draft and run with it. So I definitely would not recommend
Right.
that for anybody. And I, along the copy lines, I do think it begs the question. It's actually a lot more serious of a question for SEO and content in general, is if it becomes so easy to create content and the content is basically regenerating itself. So it's always posting, because it can only create content based off the data set. So it's never going to create something that's completely original and different, right, because it can't, by definition. It feeds off a data set. So it can only create even original and unique within its confines of that data set. So I think you're always going to need someone creating something new and innovative and different that AI just can't do.
Where do you see it going in the next couple of years? Like, do you think it'll be a little bit better where us marketers can actually use it and not have that much human interaction?
I think we can in some ways. Like I said, I think for the data, for sure. I think marketers are definitely going to be leaning into AI data. For AI can identify, where you need to spend more of your time in marketing, where you can just kind of coast because these are easy, what opportunities you have. So I definitely think that more and more we're going to get smarter and smarter there with AI. I think visually, which I'm a bit conflicted on because I do feel like all of these AI platforms that like Midjourney and all the rest that do visuals, I do feel like they've leaned on artists a lot for gathering the core data. And I do feel like that there wasn't necessarily fair compensation there. But I do see a lot of marketers already using platforms like Midjourney to get their product photos just right or get the right stock imagery. I mean, even Adobe Stock Library is selling AI generated images in their stock library, which I also felt was like, that feels a little off brand for what you're selling something that somebody else generated. Yeah. But I do see that that's probably where it's going to keep going.
So, Andrea, the last kind of segment isn't really a question as such. It's more of like let's say, a promotion for yourself and the creative. If you had to do, let's say, a 2-minute or 3-minute elevator pitch for yourself and the creative, how would that go?
starting with that fractional versus freelance mindset, bringing in over 20 years marketing experience, we function as an extension of your existing team. We really look to see what's going to grow your business, what's right for your business, and we're constantly working to accelerate how you grow and do what's right for your brand, really help you drive revenue, and build you something that you're really proud and excited about. And I think it's a real testament that we've only been an agency for 4 years and we've had clients for 3+ years. All of our agreements are month to month, so people stay because they want to and they like working with us. And if you listen to our testimonials, what's funny is, yes, they talk about growth, but I do think they're very different from other agencies because a lot of them talk about compassion and understanding and listening. Because, as you know, running your own business, running your own podcast is an emotional journey. And I think it really helps to have a partner that's not transactional. Instead, like, we get you results, but we also care about you and care about your business. And I think that really makes it different.
All right. And where can people find you and Dia Creative?
Dia Creative is diacreative.com, and that's the best place to find us and reach out to us there. There's a place you can fill out a form or book a time. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. My name's spelled funny, so make sure you watch or go to the podcast show notes or whatever so you can get it right. And yeah, that's exactly, I'd love to connect anyone that wants to talk marketing. As I, like Aaron, I just appreciate even having this conversation. I think it's super fun to talk to somebody that knows the space and asks a good question. So obviously SEO On-Air is like next on my list.
But then thank you so much, Andrea, for the chat. It was lovely. I do feel like this was more of like a promotional side of things for you. And it's really good that way because you kind of did everything in a very clear understanding so that no one has to watch this episode 10 times to kind of understand what we had to talk about. But thank you so much for the chat. Thank you so much for educating all of us here. And I hope we can get you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Good questions.
Thanks for watching that episode. I hope you enjoyed. For more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe.